Hello witches, and welcome back to Activist Witch, where we discuss witchcraft and activism. You can call me Isha, my pronouns are she, they, and in today's video I'm gonna tell you about my deity work with Venus, Aphrodite. I've been working with her for a year and a half, and I've made already a video with all her legends and lore. I'll link it down in the description below. This is specifically about my practice with her and the ways in which she blessed me and helped me so far. But before we get started, let me remind you that I've opened a Ko-fi, and on there you can do a one-off donation, a monthly donation, or even get a tarot reading with me, Italian style. The low-income option starts at £5. And for the foreseeable future, all my profits from tarot readings go directly to support Coaches to Gaza, who are part of the mutual aid groups that supports Palestinian people evacuate and relocate to Egypt. So if you decide to support me there, thank you so very much. Also, don't forget, we are in phase 2 of Witches for Palestine. If you want more information about that and how to participate, check the links down in the description below. So, similarly to my update video on Vesta, in this video we're gonna go on the first part on the things that I've experienced with Venus, the kind of workings and spells, and the parts of my life that she has helped me with. Then we're gonna go in a detailed altar tour as well, and I'm gonna give you some tips about how to start working with her. Very simple, very respectfully, very devotionally, and try and see if her energy can be harvested for bringing betterment to your life. So again, you find all the information about the legends, the lore, the informations that you might need to research Venus or Aphrodite in my first video. It's linked down in the description below. What I can tell you very briefly here is just how I started to work with her, which is around late May, early June 2023. It just happened. I told you before, usually you are told that you need to wait and learn about witchcraft a lot before starting to work with deities. It's a commitment, and that's still very real and valid. Aphrodite, Venus, happened to me. If I were to exactly pinpoint you how and when I took the conscious decision, it gets a bit muddy. Let's just say that at the beginning of June 2023, the planet Venus was very well dignified. If you don't know what that means, I have a video about planetary magic and planetary timing. Electional astrology and planetary magic is one of my special interests. So, for the purposes of working with Venus and with the energy of Venus, the planet, Venus was very well dignified. The more dignified a planet is, the better the kind of results that you can get from that spell that relates to them. So I did the spell in early June of 2023 because I think Venus was +9, something like that. And it was a spell related to my artistic practice. I am a spoken word artist. I've become more of an eclectic artist since then. Probably it's also because of her. And at the time, the point was, you know, my spoken word poetry is basically the entire concept that we say about poets, like not to sound altisonant or anything like that, but the infamous poets are those that delve into the abyss of human condition and are the ones that come back to tell the tale. The thing that is always skipped is how heavy it is to go down that abyss. So the spell was mainly, let's say, without going into detail, about how do I still manage to make art without suffering it that much. I think that similarly to how the entire concept of magic works for me, I went to her for a specific thing that I thought was best for me. And she took me under her wing saying, no, you don't understand what you need. I understand what you need. Let me put you on the right path. I said it recently in the video about Vesta. I genuinely do believe that magic and spells work best when you don't go in practical details about how things need to manifest, but you are very detailed about the feeling and the sensation of what you want would bring to you. Do I talk about Venus, protector of sex work, and the kind of immense gifts that she immediately brought?
Yeah.
There's also a point that I didn't necessarily touch upon in the first video, but because this is about my personal practice with her, it is worth mentioning. I don't talk about it often because there's not necessarily a reason here, but in the past I have dabbled in digital sex work. As you might know, Aphrodite, by nature, goddess of love and beauty, was considered a protector of sex workers. Something that happened in June 2023, when I was literally on the cusp of deciding, oh, this looks so pretty and I feel so attracted to all of this, but can I take on the commitment of working with another deity? I feel like she gave me a bit of a push. What she did was let me receive from my old sex work accounts a huge, inexplicable donation. And when that happened, and it was almost the end of the month, I already had the statue and the 2 tea lights, but it was sort of non-committal. And when I received this donation, I went to the altar and I told her, I think that was you. If it was you, don't challenge a deity, but if it was you, and this happens again as soon as it turns to July, I'll take it as a yes, and we should start working together. Lo and behold, at midnight of the 1st of July, the same donation of the same amount, which is huge, comes again. Never before, never again. So after that, I was like, I think we are meant to be. I can see the kind of energy that you can bring to my work in general, overall. Also because that avenue is not something that had been updated in a long time. So that kind of sudden economical income that just happened once and again, exactly as I asked, doesn't make sense that it happened. At the time, something that I promised her was like, okay, you brought me this kind of success in this part of my life, and economical stability for someone that is relying on welfare and is disabled, would be a great thing, wouldn't it? So at the time I was like, okay, what I will do to dedicate to you is that monthly I will do a piece of content of this kind of content that I make in my... I don't need to go into detail. And I did it for a couple of months, and I think in August I forgot. By the 8th of September, when I do my monthly ins and outs and I keep the books, I look at the statue and I have this feeling, are you mad at me? And I said it before, I don't think the deities have the high standard that we put on them. I think that there's a lot of subjecting ourselves to very high standards because of what the concept of divinity means to us, but it's our very strict standard on ourselves rather than theirs. So anyway, I had this feeling while looking at the statue. I do all the accounting and realized, oh, I've done that content in July, but I haven't done it in August. Now we are in September, and rightfully I might be feeling this because I haven't lived up to what I promised. So I tried to catch up, but realistically by October I realized this is not something that I want to be committed to do. I know that I promised you. You do not promise to a deity something that you cannot deliver. As I said in the other video, under promise, over deliver. Do not for any reason think that you can promise to a deity and then not do it. That's why you don't need to do crazy, huge things, but the little that you promise, make sure that it's something that you can live up to. Because I felt awful when I knew that I sort of was in the wrong with her. At some point, I did a tarot reading, and I basically asked her, okay, this I can't quite do. What other ways can I bring you my devotion through acts that is not this? And what came through with that reading was being involved in your community, being involved, being out and about, being out there, being present, being visible. Which is sort of what I try to do. And indeed, one of the main things that I have noticed since working with Venus is that I have become unnaturally a social butterfly, in the sense that I still don't necessarily enjoy and I get very burnt out around people. But so many occasions and opportunities have been presented to me of people coming to me, finding me, looking for me, asking me to do things within the community. to be indeed visible and present. And somehow I've accidentally become one of the keystones of my local queer community. And I didn't understand how that happened, but maybe not by chance, it happened exactly at the same time that I started to work with Venus. Something that people seem to be focusing on a lot with Venus is self-love, its beauty, its glamour, magic, and by all means, that's all her domain, but something that I think is incredibly underrated with her is indeed something that has to do with popularity, with success, even economical success. And coming to realize that, I think around April, I decided to do a spell, which actually you can find on this channel. It's the only spell that I've ever done, beginning to end. You have every detail of how I actually crafted that spell and I made it happen. I did it in West Wales. And it was literally a success and prosperity spell, which I did being careful about when is Venus, the planet, well dignified. Because you would think about prosperity and success being a Jupiterian, so a Thursday kind of thing, and working with Jupiter, which in terms of jobs, in terms of economical expansion, absolutely is true. But when that kind of prosperity and success comes or needs to come from social connection and engagements, I think it's her domain. I think it's the domain of Venus, because wider than the concept of simple, like romantic love, there's this thing about people and connection to people. As I said in the first video, she's the goddess of mixes in Greek, of people merging together. Whether in war or love or any other way, is this people coming together, and she was considered the goddess of that. And that is the aspect of her that personally keeps showing up for me. That is the main work that I am drawn or pushed towards with her. Because I got in the habit with Vesta of doing daily rituals, these sort of happened because that was already a ritual. So I have daily ritual with Venus as well, which is also one of the reasons why I'm not rushing into working with a third deity, because I know that my natural tendency will be do something daily, which is already a lot doing it for two deities. Put this in the daily rituals. I also light her incense daily because, again, I mutuated a lot from my habit and rituals with Vesta. Her incense, for obvious reason, is rose. Smells very nice, the Satya one, I recommend. Different from Vesta, the way that I dedicate the incense to her is at the beginning the same. So if I've done any mistake or if I've lacked of respect, please accept this to make up for it. But with her, I had to also add, and if we're okay, this is still for you. Because at some point, her incense as well wouldn't burn. I did a reading, and basically what the reading said was, you're too much in your head. You're worrying too much about what goes, what pleases me. Chill. And so because of that, even the dedication of the incense, which tends to be the, if I done something wrong that I didn't see, if I lacked in something, I'm just going to dedicate the incense daily. And I genuinely had the feeling that she was like, that's actually too much if you're doing it because you worry. So if you want to dedicate it to me because you like me, by all means, I'll take it. But if you do it just because you're basically saying sorry in advance for something that you don't know that you've done wrong yet, it's a bit toxic. So don't do it. And that's what I started to do then. Oh, you know what? This is in case I've done something wrong. And if I haven't, it's still dedicated to you. I do 2 tea lights for Venus as well. The first one is dedicated very simply to the safeguarding of my relationship with Raven, because still goddess of love. So to bring harmony, peace, health and passion to our relationship and to keep it there. And again, this is a house that is very lucky. Our relationship has been nothing but amazing in the last 2 years, and we've been together 10 years. So you can imagine how that is just keeps going very well. And the second candle, I think, started around April as well, when I did that spell, which I'll go more in detail about. And it just became a way to sort of daily do an offering in the same vein of that spell. This is to thank you for all the opportunities that you brought to us and with the hope that you will keep bringing more. I think before in general was about just bringing opportunities, but that's the thing. After I did that spell in West Wales, which was a spell that brought together all the possible sympathetic magic that I could. I crafted it from scratch, so it doesn't come from a book or anything like that. But again, there's a full video where you can see in detail what it is. And you can adapt it. Like, I am always of the mind that the more you adapt a spell to your understanding and your needs and your materials, the more personalized it becomes, and so the better it works for you. That one specifically had crystals that were connected to success and prosperity. I used tarot cards, and to this day, that spell still works. I was thinking already of doing a post on Instagram, like in general, just to post a picture of the altar of Venus, because, you know, last week was Vesta's video. I wanted to update Venus as well. Literally this morning, I got a message about, again, something that I didn't seek myself. People that got in touch with me saying, hey, I know that you do this, and this. We have a panel happening. Would you like to come and be part of this panel? It's a paid opportunity and all of that. Something that is worth sharing, that is not necessarily in the video because it was very personal and it was also my way of seeing success, was that something that I visualized and I focused at the time that I did that spell for success and prosperity was to be in a position where I would be sitting on a stage, on a panel, much like you see at like Comic-Cons, where I would be asked to talk about what's important to me or what I have learned that I feel it's important to educate other people about. And that has been one of the main things that has been happening since the spell. And the weirdest thing for me is that people are coming to ask me. I am a very independent person. I used to work in the music industry. I know that much as it sounds flattering, the people come looking for you. No, you go looking for opportunities. You knock at doors. You need to be relentless. And I had to do that in the music business. I understand completely that sometimes it sounds even a bit like low-key gloating because, oh no, I don't even search for opportunities. Opportunities find me. I am that important. So I don't like people that say that because I'm always like, no, I know that you need to go out and search them for yourself. Nothing has been just presented or given to me until April. I did that spell in April. 11 days later, I got a call. That was my first artistic commission and the first occasion in which then I was paid to do my art, which I've done a workshop in September. Some of you have come to that. Thank you. I will have an exhibition in a gallery in February. And after that, I have got a few more artistic commissions, and I've been invited to a few panels. And all these occasions, all these things are recognizing my value and paying me for my work and my experience as a person from multiple marginalizations. Also, it's something that is worth saying. It might not sound relevant, but to me it is, and it's one of the reasons that I need to be so extremely grateful for. These things would have never happened in Italy for me. I know for a fact. I know for a fact. I know how impossible this is in Italy. Here, the things are different by all means, but still, there are so many amazing people in the community that for some reason I stand out enough to be invited to these things. I'm not the only one by all means, but it's amazing that these things are happening, and I know how unlikely it would be otherwise. So this is one of the things that made me see magic is real, and the protection of my deities is definitely very, very real. And they do understand better than I do specifically how best things work for me on the long run. Because I did like spells before to get a specific job, and those never worked. The moment that I did a spell on success, asking Venus specifically for her help to bring me prosperity and success, and telling her, to me success is being able to share myself and letting people learn something that they didn't know before, and that way, hopefully, they will also make the world a better place. And I think also within less than a month of that, I did Capitalism and Cottagecore. You're probably here because of that. So not going with specific details about how, but going with that feeling of, this is what I like from my life. I like to get that sense of recognition and coming together. And it's happening on every side of my life that I could not have had the imagination to think about, but it's happening. So this is my main work with Venus these days. In a way, I see Vesta and Venus as complementary. At the beginning, I was really worried that their energy could have been opposite, in the sense that I think in the Orphic hymn of Aphrodite, you literally have a point that says the only goddesses that don't look eye to eye with Aphrodite are Athena, Artemis, and Hestia, because they are the only ones that are not affected by being infected with love, which is something that Aphrodite did, like she caused love in people. So starting off with that, and by all means, we saw it in the first video, I think all this stuff is seen from a very patriarchal lens, so I don't necessarily feel that those are actually the things that her energy goes along with, but this is how it's been interpreted and usually written by men. But I still had a bit, do they not like each other? I genuinely think by now, having worked for over a year with both of them at the same time, that they just occupy very different spaces in my life, but in a very complementary way. Whereas Vesta takes care of my life, my household, my protection in my inner space, Venus takes care of me in my public spaces, so in everything that has to do, again, with community, with being around people, and with all the opportunities that from the outside come to my life. Let's see the new and improved altar, which actually has improved and evolved a lot. First thing, as you might tell, I have more than one statue with the effigy of Aphrodite, Venus, which when I got the second one, I was like, I'm overdoing it. It's not what it's supposed, like who puts so much stuff? The first statue that I found is actually a lamp, and I found it on eBay, and I got it. It arrived broken, and I was really worried about that, but one day I come home, I haven't even asked, but Raven has repaired it perfectly. Love. And so I'm like, okay, this can work, this can work. And it's basically the Venus of Botticelli dressed. The second one that I added is this one, which is an Armani Capodimonte, which are usually very, very expensive. It says nowhere that it's Venus, but she's dressed in pink and she's holding a dove, and the dove was the bird of Venus, of Aphrodite. So to me, it was her. I managed to get it for a steal price, and when it got here, I was like, okay, I'm gonna find a way. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's too much. I think a few weeks later, I found out from someone. I don't remember if it was a video or a Tumblr post, where they specifically talked about working with Aphrodite and how Aphrodite tends to like to have more and as many as possible images of her around. So I was like, okay, I'm fine. It didn't just come because I want to be opulent. It's what she likes. Since then, I've added a third statue, which is Paulina Bonaparte depicted as Venus, which is, I think, a Canova statue, but don't quote me on that. And then this one is my latest addition. I love Armani statuettes. There are a lot of bronze ones that are of deities, but in general, they do such Art Nouveau stuff that when I can afford it and I find it on Vinted or eBay, I go there. So this is a new addition. It's not only the statue of this beautiful lady, but it also has a space behind it to just hold things. And so I had before 2 or 3 shells that were holding like pebbles or other shells or rose quartz. Now it's all there, including a small selenite plate, which is usually where my jewelry dedicated to her is, which is abalone shell. As you can tell, it's the same style of the pendant that I have for Vesta. It came from Etsy. I'll put a link down in the description below. And along with it, I have rose quartz and I have pebbles and a piece of coral that I found on the beach here around South Wales. The lamp, because it was all feathery, seemed to naturally go with her style, so it became part of the altar. I already had it. At the back you can't quite see it, but I have an IKEA square frame that has some dried flowers in it. Those dried flowers actually come from my wedding bouquet. So when I started to work with her, one of the things was also keep our relationship safe and protected and harmonious, and so bringing that to the altar seemed like some sort of sympathetic magic to bring her blessing to our marriage. At IKEA I also found this candle, which is a golden apple. Now, the myth of how the War of Troy starts with the golden apple thrown by Ares to sow discord, and the point was like that everybody wanted the gold apple because it just said to the fairest of them all. Aphrodite won it because she gave Paris Helena, which was the most beautiful woman in the world. I saw this and I was like, I'm gonna get it for you. I don't use it as a candle, it just stays there to the fairest of them all. I have a tarot deck that I read with her as well. Pretty much the same as Vesta. I put the tarot deck under incense for a week and then I started to use it. Funnily enough, I have since acquired the Aphrodite Tarot and the Venus Morningstar Tarot. I am tempted to use either of them with her, but after you've worked with a deck for like over a year dedicated to her, I personally am reticent to stop using that, because in my perception, the more I've used it, and I've used it basically almost weekly, the more it's sort of got her energy. So despite the fact that it's not as apt graphically as the Aphrodite or the Venus Morningstar would be, the Shadowscapes, which I dedicated to her because it was all pastel-y, and as you can tell, the pastel is the theme here. Everything that I see pastel-y feels like her. Since I dedicated the Shadowscapes, I do not foresee changing that. I showed it in the last video for Vesta. I used to have a tarot journal that was about everything tarot, so any kind of reading that I did, interview readings with my decks, and a part that was specifically for deities. That journal I finished last week actually, so I dedicated a new journal specifically to her. And as I mentioned for Vesta, with Vesta I associate Zodiac by Alphonse Mucha to her. For Venus I associate Reverie, and that's the reason why actually at the bottom of the altar is a jigsaw of Reverie by Alphonse Mucha. This is Reverie as well, and it's going to be the journal that I use with her. It's been consecrated the same way and has a page at the beginning that is just a dedication to her. And I also have a vase. I really like Alphonse Mucha, if you can tell. And because this vase is Reverie as well, it's just become her vase. So when I get her flowers, it goes here. And when she doesn't have flowers, this vase stays there because it's still an effigy of her. Again, if it's true that she likes multiple images of her, it definitely came natural to me. Again, I used to have big abalone shells. I have cut down on that. This altar goes through many more revisions than not the Vesta one, probably because the Vesta one is also smaller, more essential, more cozy. This is a bit more opulent, but things come and go in a way. There were at some point too many stones and I brought them back to the sea because of that. And so now it's reduced to that. Because I have the small red and white mushrooms on Vesta, last year around December in Primark I found these mushrooms, which are velvet and golden pink, which is not a color that you think you find mushrooms in, but when I saw them and realized how perfectly they would go aesthetically with the altar, I decided to get two because I just have had the feeling, probably wrong, but well, don't I get mushrooms? Yes, absolutely, when they are apt, you do. The tea light altars are as well pastime, and they are inspired by pieces of Alphonse Mucha, even though they look more like the lily pads of Monet, but officially they have the Mucha signature, so I'm not sure. I have two of these, and that's where I lit the tea lights every day. I found these at TK Maxx. I think it's supposed to be sort of a Christmas tree. The shape is that, but it's all made with shells, with shells of mother of pearl, so sort of mini abalone shells, which again, it's something sacred to her because she's a water sea divinity. So when I found it, I took it to put it on the altar as well, and it's still there. I have a tarot card from the Pythia Tarot because the Lovers is Aphrodite, so I just leave this out because, again, it's another effigy of her. It's peculiar because technically I have the one for Hestia as well, but it's not as out as the... I don't know. She knows. I have a jar of pink salt that it's dedicated and sacred to her, so anytime that I need to do personal workings for health or self-love, I use this and I consider it blessed by her because it lives on her altar. I have an incense plate, which is actually a muka plate, which, again, pretty things, pastely, Aphrodite to me. And that's where I burn the incense, but actually it burns in its own incense burner. I have a specific flowery candle snuffer for her, because sometimes I have just bigger candles that I put here to light up, just to thank her for the amazing stuff that she does for me, on top of the 2 tea lights. And then I have that pastely vase at the corner, which I found in Glastonbury last year for, again, a ridiculous, not even £5. And it's so pretty and pastely, and then I discovered that it's actually just an aesthetic vase. You can't put water in it. So I decided to put dry flowers and pussy willows that are just pretty, and therefore beauty is important. Those that think the beauty is just skin deep don't understand the way the beauty affects our mind, but also do not think that beauty is what the establishment decided is beauty. And this is the altar, basically. As I said, things come and go. One of my favorite places to find new things and get inspirations are charity shops. Again, most of the things that you see here come from either charity shops, Vinted, or eBay. I also have a candle that is for Aphrodite that comes from Vera's Vessels. I talked about them in the Vesta video as well. I'll put a link down in the description below. The idea is to use it as well for journeys and meditations where I try to speak to her that way. But again, it's not the easiest way for me to communicate, so actually still untouched. However, I've done a couple of meditations with her, and the last time it happened, I don't think I was even going into this meditation thinking of talking or thinking of Venus. But it happened in the bathtub, and I think that time specifically, I don't know if it was related to self-love or self-care, I think it was the point. And I started to have these images and flashes, which, once again, I had to scream to Raven to take notes for me, which, bless them, they did. And it was basically the outline of a witchcraft book. We'll see. How to start working with Venus/Aphrodite. The classical thing that you will hear everywhere is do research. There are a couple of books that are not necessarily pagan, but look into the history of our cults, which I absolutely recommend. They are linked down in the description below and in the first video. But also, and I cannot stress this enough, I know that the classic and probably 90% of people that want to work with Venus or Aphrodite is because of self-love, and I think it's great. Am I presumptuous in thinking that I never quite had an issue with self-love? What's the issue with me? Is it the thing about not really feeling imposter syndrome because of being put down by the world enough? Is it the same?
You have issues with self-love.
Do I?
Yeah.
I don't perceive it to be so. I'm fucking amazing.
Yeah, but the thing is that all the things that you think are negative about you, you think that they're just a straight fact. You don't let them bother you because you're like, oh, well, that's just the way it is. But you think less of yourself than you are. You just accept that you are that less.
Well, do I think less of myself, or have I observed enough the world thinking less of me because of them?
This is the point.
Okay. Fine. Could be for self-love and care, fine. Maybe. But also, there are other aspects, as you can tell. And I think the aspect of community and communion with other people, not just in a romantic sense, is definitely something that I see being underexplored with Aphrodite, Venus. And if connection to people, basically, recognition, kindred spirits, that's the thing. It's not just people. It's the Four of Wands kind of thing. It's connection with kindred spirits. It's celebration and connection and recognition with kindred spirits. So also Three of Cups. That kind of thing. That is, in my experience, the main aspect that I see of her and that I work towards, and I hope to bring the energy in my life. and it's working like a charm. So in my experience, it's not worth having the anxiety of deity, powerfuls, am I gonna misstep? Do not overpromise by any means. As I said before, underpromise, overdeliver. But also do not be afraid to ask. Fridays, as you will know, are described as her days because, as you can tell from Neo-Latin languages, venerdì in Italian, vendredi in French, the day of Venus. I think coming the 3rd of January, Venus, the planet, is also going to be very well dignified, +6 or something. So if you want to start doing works with her, that's also going to be an interesting time because it's going to be particularly dignified, therefore well-powered to do things. And you know what? It's okay to start, for example, with the odd spell, or when you do research and when you want to start talking to her, do a tarot reading without necessarily having to dedicate a deck. I have dedicated decks, but rightfully someone left me a comment in the previous video about Vesta that, oh, what if I don't have a tarot deck, or if it's an investment that I can do? And absolutely, as long as you have one or any kind of divination method that works for you. I use tarot decks because, for example, I'm not good with pendulums. Were I good with pendulums, I would be there with my pendulum all the time getting yes and no situations. But unfortunately, it's not my thing. So tarot is my thing. But any kind of divination that works for you. Chiromancy, so reading the wax of candles, either dripping in water or the remains of a candle after it melts. You can read those, you can interpret those. That is actually something that in antique Rome they used to do, along with the innards of animals, but we don't do that anymore, please. And I genuinely think that going to her for anything that you do on a social level, not just romantic, by all means, yes, the self-care, the self-love, but anything that has to do with other people, it's definitely something worth asking her help for, in my experience. And you can take it in little steps. You don't have to jump both feet in and head and everything. I was hesitant for a month before starting to work with her, and then she just showered me with gold, and I was like, cool. I think we can, yes. If you, for whatever reason you like me, you will not find me not liking you. I mean, goddess of love and beauty and war. There are so many aspects that are actually very empowering. Something that I mentioned in the first video, which I recommend you watch before this, is how the patriarchal lens has made her pretty and fragile. But no, we are talking about the entire unleashed power of femmehood. And not only because Aphrodite, bi-gender deity, go to war and ask for her blessing. If you have the luck to live close to a body of water, whether it's the sea, whether it's a river, whether it's a lake, I would definitely go there and listen. See what brings. We technically are on the River Severn / the sea here in Cardiff, but Cardiff is a peculiar city that doesn't have a beach, despite being on the sea. So it's not the easiest of things for me. I need to go to the closest town, which is Penarth, that has a beach, to actually go on a beach. But if you happen to be luckier than me in that, yes, bodies of water. If you do offerings, for the love of the goddess, please just let them be organic. So, for example, I brought her offerings of roses, fresh roses, and that I let go in a river, but that's organic, that dissolves. Do not do it necessarily with crystals and stuff. I mean, you can do it with rocks. I brought back the rocks onto the sea because I got them from the sea, though. See my point? So always be mindful about being ecological when you do and leave offerings in the wild. There are certainly more things that just don't come to me if you don't ask me a question directly. So please, any questions about my work with Venus, Aphrodite, do let me know. I love to talk about my deities, as you can tell. I love the spaces that they have in my house. It's wonderful, it's beautiful, it's pretty. If you have any questions, just let me know here in the comments. I will be right on replying to you. And until the next video, I really hope that we can hex the patriarchy together, because there's need for it. I hope I made you proud. Is there anything else that I should say? I genuinely sometimes look at the statue and probably it's in my head, but I swear she looks at me differently. Now she seems pleased.